There's your end, Judge.
Okay, very good. Okay, everyone have a seat, and Mr. Sinardi, you may proceed.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I know it's been a strenuous past 5 weeks, and I'm thankful for you all bearing with us. On behalf of myself, Attorney Nicholas Sinardi, Ms. Deborah Toomey, Katie Rayner, and private investigator who's not here, and more importantly, Davion Murphy, we want to thank you for filling your civil service duty as a juror these past few weeks. Now, as these four gentlemen sit here today, and as this court has already indicated, this is a joint trial, but what's even more important is that you are to judge Mr. Davion Murphy independently and individually, even though he sits here with these three other gentlemen. And the reason why I bring that to your attention is because as you sat here these past few weeks, you had viewed over hundreds of exhibits, and out of those hundreds of exhibits, only a select few will apply to Mr. Davion Murphy. We'll start with what we know, that on June 22nd, Davion Murphy traveled from Jacksonville to Tampa, and as you heard Detective Ramos testify, that was supported by the LPR readings from the Silver Chevy Cruz, as well as the CDR records. And we're not denying that Davion was in Tampa, Florida. And the state had presented numerous pieces of evidence. We're not denying those pieces of evidence. The facts are the facts, and the evidence is the evidence. I'm not going to stand here. I'm not going to present some elaborate story, and I'm not going to waste your time. Again, this is just a showing of the LPR hits from Jacksonville to Tampa, which tracked the Chevy Cruz, which was ultimately linked to Davion Murphy. Eventually, Davion Murphy did get to Tampa, and again, you heard from Detective Ramos that his cell phone pinged at the Airbnb prior to the shooting and the homicide. Pinged thereafter, he was at the Airbnb. Again, the surveillance at the McDonald's at 1:36 in the morning. He was surveilled on the McDonald's surveillance. He was there. CDR records and the phone data support that. At 1:54 in the morning on June 23rd, what we saw on the CDR records was an outgoing call to Rashad Murphy's cell phone. That number ending in 0925. Now, you had heard from Detective Ramos that he had testified that Rashad Murphy had left his phone in Jacksonville with his fiancee and the mother of his children, Charmaine Steiger. Rashad Murphy didn't come to Tampa with his cell phone. He didn't have a cell phone. Why is this important? Because you also heard Detective Ramos testify there was no relationship between Davion Murphy and Charmaine Steiger. There wouldn't be a reason for Davion to call Charmaine Steiger. Based on that, would lead you to conclude that Rashad Murphy had called Charmaine Steiger at 1:54 in the morning on June 23rd for a 26-minute phone call. At 5:03 in the morning, there's an incoming call again from that same number linked to Rashad Murphy and Charmaine Steiger. Again, at the Airbnb, similar to the last call. That was for 7 minutes. Why is that call important? Because at the same time, during the same minutes, between 4:56 and about 5 o'clock, there's a photo saved of Bill Belichick linked to Davion Murphy's iCloud account. Davion Murphy wasn't using his phone at that time. It was Rashad using his phone to call Charmaine back in Jacksonville. You heard Detective Ramos testify. There's no social media obtained of Davion Murphy. There's no text messages linking Davion Murphy to any of these defendants. There's no communications even on any of the other defendants' Apple iCloud dumps or extractions with communications between Davion Murphy, Isaiah Chance, Alicia Andrews, and Sean Gathright. We saw the Bill Belichick photo was favorited, but that was favorited by Rashad Murphy. Even more importantly, on June 23rd, that same photo that was saved on Davion Murphy's iCloud was posted on Ghost 187's Instagram. Again, Davion Murphy didn't have social media. Rashad Murphy had an Instagram, and that Instagram, Ghost 187, was linked to Rashad Murphy. Again, this is just showing you the CDR records. You heard Detective Ramos testify that CDR records aren't always going to be accurate. There's going to be bits and pieces of gaps missing. It's not going to track continuously over time. Same thing with timing advance. There's going to be bits and pieces of information missing. It's not continuous tracking of information. But nonetheless, he was active in Tampa, and he was present at the Airbnb. This is seen on June 23rd, right before Davion Murphy left in the Chevy Cruz, heading back to Jacksonville. He's seen on the Ring camera footage. The state made a big deal about this because they said, that's the only time he's ever seen on the Ring camera footage. Well, we heard from Detective Ramos and others that Rashad Murphy was present at the Airbnb, and he was never seen on the Ring camera at all. It was his own testimony that he was there. In fact, Ramos even testified that there was someone inside the Airbnb already when Alicia Andrews arrived, and they weren't able to conclude who that person was. I submit to you that simply being seen once is not indicative of some consciousness of guilt to attempt to conceal or hide oneself. Again, this is a mapping of the Chevy Cruz that Davion Murphy was in by himself, heading back to Jacksonville. At no point from the time that he leaves Jacksonville to the time that he's heading to Tampa, to the time that he leaves Tampa, heads back to Jacksonville, or rather while he was in Tampa, do we ever see Davion Murphy in the Impala? Never. And why? That wasn't his family's car. It wasn't his cousin's car. He had no ties to that Impala. Just like he doesn't have any ties to Sean Gathright, Isaiah Chance, or Alicia Andrews. The only thing linking Davion Murphy to this is his cousin Rashad Murphy, who he came down here with on the weekend of the 22nd. Now, what hasn't really been indicated in detail, clearly, but I'll get to it in a second, is that during the interrogation, we see Davion Murphy imitating holding a firearm. What's important about that is that Mr. Davion Murphy is left-handed. And so when you see him writing and signing the Miranda form, signing with his left hand. When he's holding and mimicking that imaginary firearm, he's discharging it with his left hand. The shooter, clipped from the Tesla video, is right-handed. Shooter number 3, who they believe is Davion Murphy. He's shooting with his right hand. The state may make an argument that there's no way that a person could shoot with the left hand with the assault rifle based on the testimony from DeJesus, because the cartridges would come out and hit you. The shooter didn't have to worry about that. There was brass catchers on that firearm. No casings would have hit a shooter holding it with the left hand on the trigger. Davion Murphy is only seen in the Chevy Cruz. His phone doesn't ever show him leaving the Airbnb during the time of the shooting. He's never seen with any weapons. There's no DNA evidence linking Davion Murphy to any firearms, to any crime scene, nothing. There's no text messages between Davion Murphy or any of the other defendants of some form of an agreement to come down to Tampa and kill Julio Foolio, Charles Jones. There's no agreement to hide any firearms. There's nothing. More importantly, you've heard testimony from several gang experts that they don't even know who Davion Murphy is. They didn't have no clue who he was before this investigation. Now, as you've heard from every other defense attorney already, the state gets the last word. And so this will be the only opportunity that I get to speak to you. And what I anticipate the state's going to make a big deal out of is the interview with Davion Murphy. Now it took them almost 7 months for him to get captured. He didn't leave Jacksonville. He was picked up right in Jacksonville. The same place he went to when he left Tampa, he was picked up right in Jacksonville. He wasn't hiding, but ladies and gentlemen of the jury, when you were first voir dired, you were asked, have you seen this case on the news? Have you seen this case on the TV? Are you familiar with it? This is a high media case. I would submit that Mr. Murphy was familiar with this case due to the high media, and that he wasn't intentionally hiding, but he was in the heart of Jacksonville with his friends and family, and he knew what would happen if he got picked up, and that would be a long process. You've heard that this case occurred, this homicide occurred in 2024. We are in now 2026, 2 years later nearly. I would submit that based on the evidence presented, it's not sufficient enough to prove beyond the exclusion of every reasonable doubt that Davion Murphy is guilty of homicide, first-degree murder of Charles Jones Julio Foolio, attempted murder, and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Thank you.
Very good. Rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor.
Then close out Mr. Sinardi's demonstrative.
Yes, we will.